It's a footy boob. I do apologise for it. Looks like I've got just come back from a job interview. I'm actually just back from the office, but I didn't have time to record my review for Buried last night, so I thought I'd do it now before I have to make dinner and stuff. I went and saw Buried last night with a friend of mine. Unsurprisingly, the cinema was practically empty, and which is a shame because Buried is one of those movies where it just kind of reaffirms your faith in cinema in terms of high concept. High concept is one of those things where lives or dies on, you know, how good it lives up to its setup. So I mean, stuff like Phone Booth is a fairly good movie, and it manages to, you know, keep it going for the entire duration, despite the fact that it's predominantly set in one single phone booth. Buried is an altogether different beast, really. It's got Ryan Reynold, you know, aka Van Wilder party liaison, being a man who is effectively, well, it's not effectively, he is buried, you know, in the Iraqi desert, and he's being held hostage. He's been buried with a lighter and phone, well, a BlackBerry, and he's got to try and negotiate his release. The movie never, ever leaves the confines of the coffin. If you suffer from claustrophobia, it's you know, probably one of the worst movies to watch because, you know, you're there for 90 minutes just in this, you know, 6 foot long, 1 foot tall box. I have to say, I absolutely loved the film. I thought the film was absolutely terrific. It's got very high concept, but it manages to live up to this high concept. Kudos has got to be said of Ryan Reynolds. The man started off as, you know, well, he is a comedic actor. He's done, you know, stuff like, you know, he's obviously famous for doing Van Wilder. He's probably the only good thing in Blade Trinity. He always comes off as a comic actor. He's always got these quippy one-liners and stuff. And although he does manage to, you know, sneak some of those things into Buried, for the most part, it's just him going through all the ringers of emotion of, you know, being stuck in this box. It's so convincing at times that you genuinely kind of think that the filmmaker just literally left him in this box with a camera for real. He goes from being panicked, depressed, happy, jubilant, back to depressed, back to panicking, back to extreme anger, back to frustration, back to happiness, back to hope, back to acceptance. He goes through all these different emotions in the space of this 90 minutes. The only performance that I've sat there and, you know, liked just as much in terms of there being serious talent to this acting is Sam Rockwell in Moon. Ryan Reynolds is the only physical presence on the screen, so you have to deliver a powerhouse performance. High concept thrillers live or die on living up to their intriguing premise, and Buried just works. It really, really, really works. You've got to marvel at how they were able to construct a 90-minute movie set within the confines of a bloody coffin. How the hell did they do that? I kind of liken the plot to being like a pressure cooker of a drama. There's this initial despair, and then there's, you know, he's got to try and, you know, figure out why he's there, get in contact with the people that are going to help him. It's amazing how it's able to develop relations, you know, convincing relations between him and the people that he has to speak on over the phone. You know, there are prominent people that he has to speak to. The main one being the gentleman that is dealing with his kidnapping manages to get in contact with someone who is trying their hardest to try and free him. And their rapport is brilliant despite the fact that it's over the phone. Once all that's established, the second half builds to kind of this gut-wrenchingly horrible sense of tension and despair and bleakness. It not only, you know, doesn't relent, but it's just kind of makes you nauseous. The only level of tension I think I can liken it to, in terms of not just being tense, but in just feeling genuinely uncomfortable, was probably like United 93. I was sat there with my friend Vicky, and as soon as the credits started to roll, you know, there was only probably about 5 other people in the cinema with me, and it was really quiet because there's no music over the credits. It just stops, and the credits start. I was so kind of, I wouldn't say appalled, I was just so, you know, racked up with tension. I sat there and shouted, "You son of a bitch!" And it wasn't out of frustration, it was just out of, you know, having to release that level of tension that they built up during the course of the film. Can't remember the director's name. He's a Spanish gentleman. He's figured out many different ways of filming a coffin than I could ever possibly think of. I mean, how do you film a coffin? How do you film someone being in a coffin? The only gripes I have are predominantly within the first half. Like I said, there's no real major sense of tension within the first half. In terms of him going back and forth on who he has to call the level of frustration he has with in terms of like bureaucracy, it kind of does feel a bit episodic. It's only after you finish watching the movie that you realise that the first half is all kind of foundations for delivering the second half. The ending it delivers, you can't help but kind of just sit there after that wave of tension, the way it's made you feel uncomfortable. You just feel this wave of despair, and it just, I'm genuinely gobsmacked about how good that film was. I don't see how it can be knocked out of my top 5 of the year. It's just an astonishingly good film. It is extraordinary. You know, it is one of the most profound pieces of cinema I've seen in a while. If all movies could elicit such an emotional response out of me, cinema as a whole would just be in a better place, really. The payoff towards the end is satisfying in a somewhat melancholy way, because the movie is bleak. And I'm not just saying, you know, I'm not sitting here saying it's got a bleak ending, just the whole tone of the movie is bleak, just the scenario itself is bleak, and it plays on this bleakness quite well. I will give this film, without provocation, 5 out of 5. It's not perfect, but there are very few movies that are perfect. Even Inception, which is still my favourite film of the year, was not perfect. It just elicited such a response out of me, and it's good that cinema should give you that sort of, you know, that sort of edge, that sort of, you know, emotional response. All cinema should do that. It's that wave of satisfaction that you have on sticking with the film and, you know, being that invested. It just wins. It just wins every time. If it's playing down at your local multiplex, just see it. If you're claustrophobic, you will probably have an aneurysm. It just makes you squirm in the best way possible. So yeah, that is my review of Buried. I shall see you all soon, and go see Buried. Very, very good. Go see it. Like, now. Stop watching this video. Just go to the fucking cinema. Just go. Stop what you're doing and go. Okay? Bye.